All right. Well, good morning, church. We decided back a couple weeks ago that it'd be a great idea for us to share what Christ did each day of Holy Week, or as some Christians call it, we call it the Passion Week, because it was the passion of Jesus Christ. He set his face towards Jerusalem. He knew what he was doing, and he came into the jaws of death for our salvation and for his glory. So we're here. We're Monday morning, and we decided that what we'll do is Josh is going to take Monday to help walk us through what took place on Monday, maybe highlight one part of it. I'm going to take Tuesday. Lucas is going to work with Wednesday, and then we'll see all of you for Monday, Thursday meal, and Good Friday service, and then we'll see you on Easter. Don't forget to invite people to our Good Friday and to our Easter services. So, Josh, why don't you take it away? Walk us through this first day.
Yeah, so we jump in Mark chapter 11, verses 12, and we jump into Monday of Holy Week, so the first day of Holy Week, right after the triumphal entry, the very next day. And we see in this event a couple different things happening. We're going to see Christ curse a fig tree and then cleanse the temple. The reason we're doing these both is because on his way to the temple is when he comes across the fig tree. So let's jump into verse 12 of chapter 11. It says, on the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing that in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the seasons for figs. And he said to it, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his disciples heard it. Now, when I read that, it was a little bit weird, kind of a random event that takes place. And I think a couple of contextual things are useful to know about this. According to Chuck Swindoll, the phrase in leaf describes what people in the ancient Near East would have understood to be the time when fig trees produced small edible buds. These buds would eventually fall off and figs grow in their place. So, if no buds appear, then the plant is barren and it would produce no fruit. So what Christ is doing, he's after something happening at Bethany, he's on his way to the temple, and he sees this fig tree in the distance, and he sees leaves on it, and he goes to check it out. It turns out it's got no buds on it, so he decides it's barren and curses it. And I think what this is trying to teach us, I think the reason why he does this, because every event that takes place this week has intention. I think what the fig tree is, it's a metaphor for those that fail to bear fruit. A fruit tree that doesn't bear fruit is a useless tree.
Yeah, it is.
And so I think what he's doing here, and we see another discussion about fruit in chapter 15 of John, and that's the night before the crucifixion. And it's really interesting that I think he's implicitly telling his disciples here that if you bear no fruit, that it's worthless. And there's no life in you. And it's better for you to be gone and cursed if you're not going to bear fruit. That's what do you guys have any thoughts on that?
No, that's great. Yeah. I didn't think about that whole part of the buds, and the buds are edible. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep going. Let's see what he does when he actually gets to his destination, which is the temple. And this is the final cleansing of the temple. And I say it like that for a reason. Let's jump to verse 15 and let's just read it. Can one of you guys actually read it? Verse 15 through 19.
Yeah. And they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the table of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he was teaching them and saying to them, is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations, but you have made it a den of robbers. And the chief priests and the scribes heard it and were seeking a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the crowd was astonished at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out of the city.
Now this is really interesting, because he does the same thing as one of the first events he does at the very start of his ministry, 3.5 years prior. So the question is, there were times he went to the temple in which he didn't cleanse it. So why does he choose to bookend his ministry with one cleansing the temple when he starts and one at the end?
Yeah.
And I think the reason why is because he's trying to represent something. Jesus, the same way the Old Testament prophets were, was all about purifying the worship of God in Israel. the religious leaders at the time had turned the Lord's house of worship into a house of commerce. And they made a financial industry off the worship of the Lord. They were in the most literal way, they're grifters. They're swindling people.
Yeah.
They preferred to be these holy people when their real aim, or they pretended to be holy people when their real aim was ripping off people that had sincere heart of worship. And it made a mockery of God's house. And so Christ could not stand for this. And he wants to make it clear to his disciples by bookending this event in his ministry that zeal for God's house consumes Jesus. And he takes seriously pure and unadulterated worship of the Lord. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's very cool.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were about making money.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Ripping off people, but making
Right.
money.
Yeah.
Lining their pockets with more and more. They had lost the heart. There was no heart for Christ at all, or
Yeah.
for God. And so Christ cleansed it.
Well, I love thinking about, I mentioned it, but I love thinking about the Old Testament, how the prophets would call out the leader of Israel for their adultery and for their rebellion against the Lord. And I think we're seeing something happen here, except with a more hypocrisy involved, where these religious leaders pretended to be holy men, pretended to be great. And as we see throughout the ministry, Christ confronts their hypocrisy a lot. But I think the best example of their hypocrisy is what's taking place at the temple.
Yeah.
This is God's house. It's not their house. And they're using something that is intended for worship of the Lord for something selfish for them, which I think is a reflection of their hearts that view the Lord that same way.
And that tells us a lot, too, about even for us personally today,
Yeah.
when we come to the Lord's house for worship on a Sunday morning, for us to come with hearts that are humble, hearts that are ready to receive, not just to get or to see what we can get, but to make sure that we are pure before the Lord too.
Well, that's always a tendency, right? Like we sometimes have a tendency to view church as something for us, when really it's something for the Lord. It's a sacrifice. It's an offering of praise to God when we meet. And I think Jesus really cared about that.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that he bookends his ministry with these two cleansing the temples indicates the degree to which he cares about pure and honest worship of Yahweh, which is really cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel like there's also like just one little note. It's kind of like this is almost a warning for like us to be careful and cautious of a slippery slope of allowing like ourselves to like get like a glimpse of the glory that is due to God, right? Of like,
Yeah, that's a good
it's kind of
point.
like the Pharisees. Like someone came up at, I don't know, I think I preached on this like a month ago. Someone came up to me afterwards and they brought up when did all of these like the rules and these like laws that they created, how did that happen? Was it all at once? And I was kind of thinking like, it was probably the rabbinical nature of like it got passed down from one to another to another to another, and someone just brought it up. Hey, let's just add this. This can maybe make us more holy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this. It's like this started likely with good intention of like, hey, let's not just do a money changing or money like let's make it easier for people to come and worship at the temple.
Yeah.
But then they're like, well,
So they
we
can buy
make
their
money.
stuff there. So they can buy their
Exactly.
their
to make
stuff
the
there.
travels
Yeah.
easier. But then it's like, well, we can make a little bit of money out of this, and it's like that heart. I mean, that was a really easy thing to do, right? Just upcharge it by a little bit. No one they might not even notice.
Yeah.
But then they're actually pocketing what is due to God.
Well, and dude, that's such a good point. And I think we have to realize that we make little compromises.
Yeah.
And we don't get from point A to point B overnight, usually, as far as like the trajectory of sin and the trajectory of corruption. It's little compromises along the way that get us there. So we, as Christians, need to make sure our hearts are guarded in lots of areas of our life about like sin creep in, false motives creep in. A lot of times when they're small, we start to justify them, which is why it's so important to be in tune with the Spirit and to have a tender heart towards the Lord, so he can bring to mind when you're sort of justifying sinful behavior in a way that's inappropriate. So it's those little compromises, like you said, that really end up causing a complete mockery of worship.
Yeah. Amen. Good. Well, thank you, Josh. We'll see you guys all tomorrow morning. And we'll be praying for you and ourselves as we prepare our hearts for the celebration of Christ's resurrection this upcoming Sunday.